Shannon Milburn was once a stay-at-home mom. She co-founded Just Between Friends, a children's and maternity consignment business that grew from a small living room sale into the $15 million Just Between Friends franchise system, with more than 115 franchises in 24 states. Just Between Friends has been featured on CNN, Good Morning America, and the Inside Edition, among others, inspiring Shannon to share her success story with others as she seeks to encourage those who have a dream and instill in them the idea that with courage and vision, starting and succeeding in business is possible. Help me in welcoming Shannon Milburn.
Hello, tonight I'm going to introduce another one of our speakers, James George. James George is the founder of Bogan Bates Incorporations, Cafe Cubana, and Habanos Acquisitions. He is also a professor at the OSU Tulsa campus in the Department of Management and Entrepreneurship. He also earned his MBA at the American Graduate School of International Business. So I hope you all enjoy his story and take away something positive. Please help me introduce James George.
Okay, I'm Kaylee, and I'm going to be introducing Mr. Miller. Mr. David W. Miller II is the president of HK Consulting, a marketing and management consulting firm based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Mr. Miller is the author of Hard Knocks MBA, The Search for Job Satisfaction and Business Success, and has been a featured speaker, guest educator, trainer for businesses, associations, and media outlets nationwide. As chronicled in his book, Mr. Miller was previously the owner of Trinity Restoration Incorporated, also of Tulsa. Trinity was an international automotive restoration services provider. While at Trinity, Mr. Miller increased annual sales from 0 to over $6 million, reaching the top 1% of sales nationally and the Inc. 500 fastest growing privately held companies in America for 2008-2009. Trinity received national recognition through partners Chip Foods, Orange County Choppers, CMT MTV's Trick My Truck, and Halicki Films' Gone in 60 Seconds. Prior to Trinity, Mr. Miller spent over a decade in telecommunications, serving in a number of executive sales and marketing roles around the country. These companies range from public firms such as MCI, AT&T, WorldCom, and Cox, to private firms such as Telstra, Pulsecom, and Infinitec Networks. Mr. Miller has also been involved in a number of entrepreneurial enterprises, ranging from home furnishings to wine and spirits to oil and natural gas. Mr. Miller is a member of several professional associations, such as the American Marketing Association, Rotary International, OSU Alumni Association, and the Phi Kappa Tau Fraternity Incorporated, of which he was a former president and VOG chairman and one of the youngest members of its National Hall of Fame, class of 2006. Mr. Miller earned his BA in Industrial Organizational Psychology and Marketing from Oklahoma State University in 1992 and his MBA in International Marketing from Robert Kennedy University of Zurich, Switzerland in 2003. In 2002, he was honored to be a member of the Executive MBA series at MIT's Sloan School of Management in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Mr. Miller frequently volunteers and teaches at business schools around the country. Mr. Miller's interests include scuba, shooting, hunting, riding, skydiving, kickboxing, flying, fencing, golf, running, and public speaking. Mr. Miller makes his home in Dallas, Texas. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Miller.
So they're going to pass some stuff out from these folks, but we have one mic.
Is it on?
And our technical guy will. So if you can share that, but we've got some problems with the Zoom. But what I'd like to ask each of you to do is take as much time as you like, but talk a little bit about your journey, your business, and where our themes of failure, success, survival maybe fit into the story of your entrepreneurial journey.
Well, I am honored to be here tonight and honored to be with these two gentlemen. So thank you for having me. I always tell men, businessmen especially, when I talk to them about my business, I tell them you're not going to hear anything about my business because you're a man. And but where I do get some recognition is when I have men who are fathers and they understand the cost of raising children. So my company is called Just Between Friends, and it's a twice yearly children's and maternity consignment sales event. So basically what that is it's a garage sale for children's and maternity clothes, toys, and baby equipment. And we don't have a storefront, so we have events twice a year in the territories where we have franchises. And so it's basically we go in and we set up a temporary store, and the families come, they drop off their merchandise, they've tagged it at home, they drop off their merchandise, and they're going to make 65 to 70% on whatever they're selling. So this is great for families who are on a budget and need a way to kind of recoup some of the investment that it takes to raise children. I read a stat recently that about 42% of women think that it's going to cost $10,000 in the first year of a child's life, just for all the stuff and everything that you have to do to raise a child. So that's the solution we offer, is we try to save them money. So anyway, we also are run by volunteers. Our events just twice a year are run by volunteers. And then we also have a charity angle, if you will, hook to get media. And all of our franchises benefit in part to nonprofits. So we're also a green business, so we're recycling. So anyway, I started this company in my living room in 1997. I'm not a serial entrepreneur, I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I was just a stay-at-home mom, and my mom called me and said, oh, there's something that I think you should be interested in. I had grown up on a budget. My dad was disabled for 17 years, and I had grown up shopping consignment. So it was just natural when I got married that I would also shop consignment when I had children. So I started doing that. We had the very first sale in my living room in 1997. My business partner and I had 17 women. We got all their items ready. We set up clothing racks in my living room. We used the kitchen drawers as cash drawers. And we sold about $2,000 worth of merchandise. And we didn't know that this was, I didn't have any grand aspirations to be an entrepreneur. I was just like, hey, I'll get to shop my friends' stuff first, and they have more money than I do, so their clothes are cuter. And so we did that, and it was a success. So people started asking, when are you going to do this again? So we had another sale, and another, and they got bigger and bigger every time. In 2003, I had gone back to school. My degree is elementary education. I don't have an MBA. In fact, I said that speaking recently. I said I don't have an MBA. A business mentor of mine told me when I was going to go back to get my MBA, he was like, "You don't need your MBA, Shannon. You got your MBA the hard way." And so I mentioned that in a speaking engagement that I had, and I had this lady that came up to me afterwards. She said, "Now, Shannon, you don't have your MBA," and I was like, thinking, I think that's what I said. I don't know. I didn't say that to her. I was just thinking, yeah, I know I don't have my MBA. She's like, I have my MBA. And it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of money, and you don't have your MBA. What you have is work experience. And I was like, yes, that's right. That's what I have, work experience. So I told a girlfriend of that after. I said, I don't, but she was kind of downplaying what I had said, and she said, well, Shannon, you should have said, I don't have my MBA, but I have my MDC, my $1 million company. I was like, I wish I would have thought about that. But anyway, my degree is elementary education, so I did not know anything about entrepreneurship. I didn't know anything about starting a business. I had no business starting a business, but thankfully I have lots of smart people that I surround myself with, and they help me every step of the way. So in 2003, we started looking into franchising our model because we were helping people get started in different communities around the United States, friends and family that wanted to do the same thing. And so we started looking into franchising, and that's when the Tulsa sale was grossing around, my first business was grossing around $200,000 per sale. So we were doing close to $500,000 in sales for the year, just two garage sales, grossing $500,000. So I thought, okay, this is going to work. And so we started franchising in 2004, and we now have 116 now, so we sold another one last week, 116 franchises in 24 states. And so what I get to do is I get to help people moms mostly, we have some dads, but business women start their own business and be able, our business is really a supplemental income for our franchisees, and it's really intended for moms who want to spend more time with their family, or they don't want to be corporate anymore, or they have little kids and they want to stay home. It's just an extra added income to their family. So we're hoping to gross $20 million this year with all the franchises. So that's our hope. And we got to be on the Inc. 5,000 list, not the 500 list, the 5,000. You know, they do that to make you feel good. So you're not in the 500, you're in the 5,000. But hey, I'll take it. So we've been on that list of fastest growing privately held companies for the last 4 years. And so I'm just thank you, Lord, that it is that we've gotten to do that. But I have had so many failures along the way, and I will definitely talk about some of that, but I think I want to let David go. And it's great because I've done business with David before when he had Trinity Restoration, so that was fun, getting to see that I was going to get to talk with him.
Well, from someone that has one of those degrees, you don't need one of those degrees. You have the hard knocks MBA, obviously, so no, it's great to see you again as well. But I can tell you, great organization, great people. Shannon was great to work with, and all of the members of our group were great to us. So we were partners. After that introduction, I guess I don't have to say anything. I didn't mean for you to read the whole thing, but that's like the back of the book. But David Miller, thanks for having me. Done this before with Dr. Morris. Really enjoy it. I've done it a couple years in a row. But anyway, as you heard, I used to have my own business. I worked in the real world, quote unquote, right? For about 12 years in telecom, and when telecom kind of hit the skids around 9/11, after 3 layoffs in 5 years, I decided, okay, tired of getting laid off, I'll work for myself. I'll never lay myself off, right? I actually said that, I wish I'd never said that. Anyway, so I went into business for myself. I tried to make my hobby a business, which I'm sure some of you guys have considered. So I was in telecom, I was a sales marketing guy, but my dad was a mechanic, so I was always a car nut. So I thought, okay, I'll get in the auto restoration business because I like old cars and I like people. So I figured
His
cars,
business
people.
was cool. It was like the place to go.
It was very cool. Yeah, we had a lot of cool. It didn't work out so well in the end, but yeah, cool didn't pay the bills. But we did have a very cool place, and we had a lot of fun. And basically, so for 5 years. Now I wasn't as brave as Shannon and some other folks that you probably know. I didn't start my business from scratch. I bought a small auto body shop and then just marketed it and grew it. So to me that took a lot less guts because they existed, they had a customer base. I borrowed a little money, bought it, and then I just ramped it up. So now we made it 10 times big, a lot bigger. So, but I mean again, I wasn't brave enough to do it from scratch, which takes a lot of guts.
I was stupid, so.
yeah, sometimes you just do it, right? Yeah, so same thing, I didn't know any better, so I just did it. And it was a lot of fun, and basically like they said in the bio, we went from zip, which is basically where it was, because the guy had kind of run at the ground, he was tired, he wanted to retire. And 5 years later, we were doing $6 million a year, and we had 5 locations and 50 employees, and we were making all this money and having all this fun, and it was really cool, but because of some of the wrongs that you guys talked about earlier, it also went back to 0. So, and then I wrote a book about it to try to make myself feel better. But yeah, so I had
which people will read because they don't want to make the same mistake.
Right. So yeah, that's why I'm here today. People say, well, why are you out talking about it, like Dr. Morris talked about, and I saw your questions. A lot of times when people fail, they don't want to talk about it, right? They just hide it, they ignore it, they pretend it didn't happen. I don't want to do that. I mean, I've been out for the last couple of years trying to help people and answer their questions and give them advice because they say, well, what did you do wrong? And so I'm more than the things we passed out on the back is a chapter outline of the book, and there's 7 things I did right, 7 things I did wrong, and the 7 lessons I learned. So the titles of the chapters basically tell you what the book's about, but I had to sit down and think about what did I do right, what did I do wrong, and what I learned. So that's what I've been trying to do is share that with people so that when you get your big opportunity and you find that one business that for some reason works, which Shane and I have both done, you don't blow it, which is what I did. So hopefully it'll help.
Good advice.
Yeah. And now I work in the real world again.
A little bit about my background. I grew up on a farm. And one of the things that you learn on the farm is everything's out of your control. So with that background, I approached my business career, both in corporate and my own business, the same way. What I always try to do is manage as many things as I can manage to the best of my abilities, then plan on everything else that could fail. And when you're starting a business, you never think about, like Dr. Morris said, you never consider failure. That's not what an entrepreneur thinks about. It's like, this is going to fail 3 years from now. Who would start that? Who would continue down that path? But with my background, I always thought about what's going to happen. When you grow up in a farm, it's not going to rain this year, like we've had this year. It's going to be too hot. What do you do to manage that? So each business endeavor that I've ever had, I always try to think about what's the worst case scenario? What is my definition of failure? What's my definition of success? What do I want to succeed at? What do I want to see on that scale? What is success to me in this business? What do I need to take back from this business? And I don't think a lot of people do that going into it as well. They think, I've got this great idea, I'm going to put all my life savings into it, all my family's life savings into it, and it's going to be a success. But you can't do that. You can't do that consistently. You got to think about what happens if Katrina comes through, or you have no rain this year. You got to think about those things, and you got to plan for it accordingly, as much as you can. So, and everything I've done, that's what I try to do.
Thanks. All three. So, James, have any of your businesses failed?
You want.
Almost. I have one business that started in 1996, and that was a success from the very beginning. Just blind, stupid luck. 3 years later, I started a second business, based on the arrogance that my success in the first business would completely carry me over. I thought I knew everything I needed to know. So I spent a couple $100,000 building this business out, getting everything where it needs to go, get the business going. It's not going in a good direction. And I couldn't let the first business not succeed, so I was still spending all my time and attention on the first business. The second business kept going down. So now I'm about $250,000 into it. I'm thinking, this is not working. And I think, I don't want to take this as a tax deduction. This is not what I want to use this business for. So I regroup. I start thinking about why I started the business. What was important? What was the original motivation behind it? Who are my customers? What do I want to do that's different? And it started turning around. But it took a long time. So literally 2 years into it, I thought, this is horrible. This is absolute. Everything I thought would be successful wasn't. Everything that I thought was not a big deal suddenly became a big deal. As you mentioned earlier, as Peter Drucker said, what you think a business is going to be from day one is not realistic. 2 years from now, your business will look completely different than it does from day one. And you have to anticipate that. You have to have the adaptability to move with that direction. The customers will tell you what your business should look like. You just have to be savvy enough to listen to them.
What is your business?
There's three. One is a cigar purveyor. Second is a coffee purveyor. Third is a real estate company. All three completely different. The first two are more similar than the third, but they've changed dramatically. I mean, from where they were 15 years ago, our anniversary is actually 2 weeks from now for a 15 years anniversary. So that was 13 years old, and the other was 10 years old. So altogether, I see a lot of different things, and I've had to adapt all three businesses completely. They've all completely changed. I mean, you wouldn't even recognize them from then till now.
Are you still involved in all
Sure.
of them?
Too much.
And you teach here?
Sometimes.
James teaches a course for us up at the Tulsa.
Okay.
And you mentioned earlier that the cigar business is one of the best years you've had.
Well, we made a huge investment in the cigar business last year, and it's paid off dividends. It's dramatically changed our business and how it's gotten to the point where we've outgrown our infrastructure, which leads me to the next step is when you get to the point where you're too big, you've got too many things going on in a small space, what do you do? To go to that next level will require another $750,000 to $1 million investment. And it's not that part that scares me anymore, it's how do I manage the growth? How do I manage the growth once I do this next step with everything else going on? But our businesses have all been phenomenal. I mean, you look at, I was telling Dr. Morris earlier, you look at the paper and you think about all the reasons people wouldn't come and buy things or do business with you. But that's not what I'm seeing. So for all you guys who are looking at the job market, people are still hiring, people are still consuming things, people are still spending money. They're more selective and they're more picky possibly and more price conscious, but people are still purchasing things, to my knowledge.
David, you know, it's hard to imagine a quarterback standing in front of a room and explaining why he lost the Super Bowl. We don't much like to talk about why my marriage broke up or whatever. But could you maybe give us the story in terms of what happened?
Sure, absolutely. And I don't mind it, I've done it before. Of course, every story is different, every story is personal, but for me, I was a sales and marketing guy. So one of the things that I did wrong in my business, and it worked, which was amazing for a while, but I was very good at sales and marketing because that's my passion. And I was passionate about cars, and I do like people, but the business was fixing cars. And I didn't like fixing cars enough to really be a hands-on, knee-deep manager, owner person. So focus was a big issue with a lot of it. And, you know, I wanted to be out marketing. I didn't want to be in the shop running things, making sure things are going right, making sure the employees are doing what they're supposed to do, watching the money, counting, pinching the pennies. That's just not me. So, you know, had I had a partner, which is something I think about a lot, is what if I'd had a partner that was a complete yin to my yang? What if I'd had a bean counter and we were 50-50 partners, someone that could, a little leash, someone that could tell me no? You know, we might have made it, who knows? I mean, it's impossible to really, I don't spend too much time beating my head against that wall, but you have to know your strengths, you have to be focused, and one thing that I talk about in the book is, you know, whatever business you own, you need to want to be there day and night, heavily involved, know all the details, babysit the employees, because let's face it, having employees in any business is adult daycare. It just is. Most employees are terrible. That's just the bottom line. So there's a section of my book called Employees Suck. And it's not exactly as it sounds. What it explains is it just sucks managing people. It's not that they necessarily suck. It's just a really tough job. And every business owner you'll ever meet will tell you it's impossible to find good people. That's what you hear over and over and over and over. And it's just true. It's just really, really hard. And then they're just messy when you do get them. So, but there's plenty of those. But a lot of it was focus, cash flow management. You know, we also expanded too much. Talked about growth. We grew too fast. We exploded. Once there were too many customers, not too many customers, sounds weird, but yeah, once there were too many customers, I just thought, well, we must expand. And then we expanded, and there were more customers, so I expanded again, and there were more. Well, let's just keep going. Well, you can grow yourself right out of your league. I mean, you can grow, you know, as far as your management skills, like you talked about, you just don't, it's the Peter principle, right? Everybody gets promoted to some point and they get beyond their abilities. I promoted myself beyond my abilities. So it just became such a big organization, so many locations, so many people, it became very hard to manage. And it just got away from me in a lot of areas.
And there's this, certainly for some entrepreneurs, this is very personal. I mean, the business is my baby. The business is me and my value, my image, my reputation. What's it feel like? Lose your baby?
Well, fortunately for me, I have a birth defect. I'm overly optimistic. So I have this crazy positive outlook, which also got me in trouble as a business owner because I thought I could do anything. I thought it would always work, no matter what, because it did for a long time. But so that helps. You know, that helps. Writing the book helped. It was cathartic. It was like therapy. Getting that, you know, actually, you know, like you said, not ignoring it, but actually sitting down and thinking, okay, what went wrong? What did I do wrong? You know, to sit down and write a 300-page book, it takes a while to think, okay, how do I want to say this? But, you know, you come up with 50 things you did wrong. Well, it's really maybe 7. But I think it's good. It feels good to talk about it. And the helping part of it makes me feel better. But getting out, talking to people, I freely give out my cell phone and email address. They're in the book. They're on my website. And people call me all the time that I don't know. And hey, I'm starting a business. Would you mind having lunch with me? I love doing that. That little by little makes me feel better, like some good can come out of it. So I'm looking for the silver lining, because I mean, I went out and got a job. I'm going to have a job. I'm going to work, pay the bills, have a life. But you're right, emotionally, I was shocked when it collapsed. And the sad part is, I tell this story, I think in the book, I've told it in person, but the sad part is after 5 years of 80-hour weeks and just giving my total all, when it finally collapsed, my first emotion was? Relief. I was that stressed out. So that should tell you something. I mean, the first thing I did was just collapse on the floor and think, thank God it's over. I mean, it was just that big of a load to be an owner. It's tough, stressful.
They say people quit their 40-hour-a-week job to go work for themselves and work 80 hours a week. So I think that is a characteristic of lots of entrepreneurs.
Shannon, you suggested that you're doing this in the kitchen, and it's like, damn, it's a lot today. Was it all roses?
No, we made a ton of mistakes, and I have like 7 or 8 different failures that I've written down. One of the things that we did when we were growing was we were working with we would bring vendors in. So this gentleman who was getting deals on kids' shoes, like in another area, would come to our event and he would sell shoes. And so the people shopping would be so excited because they would be getting Nike shoes for $15 for their kids, and these were never worn. They were like overstocks or whatever. So he did this at our sale for about 3 years. And so we knew him. We would see him twice a year. He would come and he would bring us the shoes, but it was his business. So we were just getting like a cut of it. So then he came to us and said, you know what, do y'all want in on this? There's this load of shoes in Pennsylvania or wherever, and I'm going to go get them. But we have to put money down first to go get them because we have to, put the deposit down or whatever. So we actually had a contract and we got everything in writing, and my business partner at the time came to me and said, okay, we have to give him $12,000 or $24,000. He needs $24,000 so he can go get these shoes, and then we're going to actually sell them, so we'll make a lot higher margin on them. And so it was like, this is a no-brainer, let's do this. So she came to me, and then I was just like, I had this check in my spirit about, I'm like, does he need all of the money right now? I'm just going to write a check for $24,000 to this guy, and again, we had a contract all filled out and everything. And so she went back to him because I was like, I'm not writing this guy a check for, he needs to come back and give me the shoes, and then I'll pay the rest of the money. So we wrote him a check for $12,000. And then we never saw him again. He totally left with the money and had a heyday, I guess, but we never saw him again. So that was a huge failure in my opinion, judging someone's character and giving someone that much leeway with your money. So huge early on lesson learned, but I have a lot more.
So we hear the adage, well, failure is great learning experience. How do you learn from failure? Because so many people seem not to learn.
I don't know why people don't learn from failure. I think you have to learn from failure. You learn, hey, that didn't work. The great thing about having a franchise system is that so many of us, we have 150 owners that own 116 franchises. So in my particular business, if someone wants to try something, that say, I want to have a fundraiser or whatever, and probably someone has done that before, and it either worked or it didn't. And so what we're doing is minimizing failure for our franchisees, because there's so many of us now that we've tried things so many times, and we can say, hey, If you want to take that risk, go right ahead. I wouldn't recommend it. You're going to lose money. But if you just think, that you're different from everyone else who's done this, then go right ahead. I think you have to fail to be able to learn. And even at the franchise level and not the franchisor level, when we're doing business, so we have an event in Tulsa. There are so many different aspects of running the event. All the decisions that have to be made that go into it, that you can make a wrong decision very easily. Even to the minuscule thing of this is where the line's going to go. This is where 1,000 people are going to wait in line. Well, holy crap, there's not enough room for 1,000 people to wait in line right there. So even the minuscule failures like that, you learn from, and then we sit down after every event and we say, okay, what worked? And we take notes during the event. Okay, we want to change this for next time because that didn't work. And we actually ask our customers. We have a suggestion place for them to submit suggestions. And even if we didn't ask for them to submit suggestions, they email us and tell us the way that they think we should run our business. So, and my comment always to that is, thank you so much. We're going to take that under advisement. I might know that totally won't work just on the knowledge that I have for the business, but there are so many things that we can do better, and we just have to tweak it just a little bit. So, and I think that's an aspect of failure that you have to, the adaptability that you were talking about. You have to know if something can be done a little bit better, tweak it and try to make it happen.
Yeah, but this guy rips you off for 12 grand. And
thank you for bringing that up.
We've all been cheated, Rob.
when you go to yourself, man, that was stupid of me. I shouldn't have done that.
Exactly.
I'm not giving the next guy 12. What did you learn? What changed in your?
In that particular, I learned that we need to check their backgrounds and possibly do reference checks. To my knowledge, we did not do that, and I think that probably could have helped us out. If we would have known his social security number, we could have probably found him, or turned him into we did, fill out a police report, but hey, he was long gone. He wasn't even from the area. So I think, even though we did have a contract, that contract wasn't worth anything because he wasn't around. So I don't know, it still makes me mad.
What year was that?
Oh, it was 10 years ago. It was so long ago.
It's personal.
Yes.
I think you said that.
Emotions play a role. So learning from failure.
I think one of the things that I've seen with people who I talk about starting a business, and I said this a minute ago, they never visualize what failure would mean to them if it happened. I think you've got to think about failure just as much as you would success. Okay, I'm leaving my corporate job to start this business. Here's what I think I will get by having my own business. I'll have freedom, I'll have this, I get to work 80 hours a week, I get paid less, all these wonderful things. But the best thing I've ever told them is visualize what it would mean if your business didn't succeed 3 years from now. And you can see this look on their face. It completely changes their attitude. But hopefully, you have to plan for that. What would that mean to you and your family if the business was not successful? Then you start building your business plan, your cash flow, all your resources to prevent that from happening. And I don't see very many people doing that because they're just not conscious that's even a possibility, even a remote possibility.
Frequently you'll hear entrepreneurs say things like, if I knew what I knew now, I'm not sure I would have started. Is that your experience?
I bet it's not my experience. My back was against the wall for about 2 years, and I think I heard in one of your classes one time that someone said something that if you don't wake up in the middle of the night sweating at 3 o'clock in the morning, something's wrong. I don't know who said that, but where you feel like you're about to die at 3 o'clock in the morning, you start pacing the floor. That's stress. That's the stress of opening your own business. But I think it makes you stronger. And everything that I've ever done has made me stronger, both in success and failure. The mistake that I made when I took the first business and started the second business was my ego got in the way. Completely got in the way. I thought, I know what I need to know. I have enough cash flow to make this work. I didn't. I have enough business background to make it work. I didn't. Everything I thought I knew, I didn't know. And even though the other one had been, successful for 3 years, it didn't translate to the new location and the new concept. It didn't work. And so that was a very humbling experience that I still think about every time I do something different. Every time I move my business in different directions, I think, what's the worst thing that could happen? I plan for it. What's the worst thing that could happen? If this is not a success, how will this jeopardize my overall business? And so that's how I'm not, David is very optimistic, and I think you have to be optimistic, but you also have to have that balance between optimism and reality. And a lot of would-be entrepreneurs do not have that dose of reality built into them. They think everything is going to be perfect.
I love how you said, what's the worst thing that could happen, because I ask myself that a lot. And I even wrote it down to talk about. Since we have franchisees, I spend a lot of time on the phone with different franchisees that are maybe struggling in one area of their business, and do counseling, or a little bit of hand-holding. And when a business is not succeeding how they think it should be, we go through okay, what should you be doing? Because this is a proven model, so it should be working if you're following, the plan we've given you. And oftentimes that's the case, is they come into a business and they think we always tell applicants that we make this look easy. That's why you're applying to do this. You think you're going to make a lot of money. You think you're hardly going to work, and you're going to get to do what you want to do. Well, that's not the case, and we tell people that in the interviews, because I don't want someone coming in and trying to start a business, or you guys trying to start a business and think, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake, because it's not. It takes time, it takes money, and it takes a lot of hard work. So that's really the secret to success, is a lot of hard work, and make sure you have either time or money, and if you have both, you're good. So you asked, I forget what the question was you asked. You asked, you said if you had known how things would turn out, would you do this again? And when I was answering that question, thank you for giving us the questions, because these were lots of deep thought questions, and I don't tend to go deep. So I wrote down no, and then I erased it and put yes. So I don't know if I would do this over, because there are so many things that you give up, especially I think women, because you're expected to be a mom, you're expected to be a wife. I'm a minister's wife, so my husband's a pastor, so and then you have to be all things to all people, and it's difficult being a business owner. And trying to be all things to all people, because you can't. There's only a certain amount of hours in the day. So you have to weigh that with the direction that you want to take your life and the steps that you take every day. Thankfully, I have teenagers that believe in me. I've got 2 high school students, and they love the business. I think what they love about the business is that I get to buy them things. So, so they have cars, and but my husband's very supportive, and I think that's another thing that, especially if you're starting your own business, that you have family support, because that's something that can totally, if your spouse is not behind you in your entrepreneurial journey, I hate to even say this, but it might not work. So that's something that we tell our franchisees too, is that you want to, if you're a spouse of an entrepreneur, you want to encourage them. If you are an entrepreneur, you want to make sure that your spouse believes in what you're doing too and is on board, so that you can both be on the same page.
Didn't quite work that way with Jack a couple of weeks ago.
Is this another speaker you have?
Yeah, Jack Allen, I don't know.
Didn't work that way.
Reflected on the wife he hated who hated him. So I want to pick up on a theme, though, if you don't mind, and James alludes to this. If I'm a young person and I'm starting something, it sounds like you're saying you're as focused on the downside loss as much as the upside potential.
I think you have to be, because as he saw up there on the board, roughly 50% of businesses do not make it. And what is the reason behind it? Some of it could be cash flow, some of it could be all the things you mentioned. But I think the reality is, sometimes you lose track of where you are. The business that you started is not what it is right now. You may not love that business. I've seen a lot of people who start a business, in my opinion, for all the wrong reasons, because they want to make a lot of money quick. And I think that's, in my opinion, I'm very blessed because I have several things that I absolutely love to do every day. And I'm challenged by them. And every day is different. I mean, completely a different ballpark every day. There's no monotony to my job whatsoever. But if I had taken the time out 15 years ago to do two things, to look at my business and say, what do I want to be when I'm 5 years from now? What do I want my business to look like 10 years from now? And that takes some of the failure aspect out of it. So you plan on it to look like that. Where do I want to be 5 years from now? Do I want to have 100 franchises? Do I want to be a $5 billion company? What are all of the steps that you've got to take to do that? And that would include looking at the failure aspects. You look at location, you look at funding resources, you look at manpower, you look at, just like you mentioned, how much time do I want to devote to this business? A big key is looking at, do I have enough money to do this? Look at all the things that could go wrong. Is my health good? Is my spouse on board? Do I want to do this? Do I have maturity to do this? Do I want to do this 5 years from now? I saw something a few years ago that it mentioned that there's a huge failure rate in businesses from years 5 to years 10. And I always thought that was interesting. If you made it through years 1 through 5, what happens in years 5 through 10? Why would you not be successful in years 5 through 10? I think a lot of it's burnout. Just get tired of doing it. I mean, like Shannon said, there's days when I'm sure your energy level's low. For someone who has 3 different things I do every day, at the end of the day, I get up at 4:30 every day, and I'm usually in bed by 10:30. And if I ever sit down for 2 seconds, I'm asleep. I hate to say that, but I'm just exhausted. But as long as I'm moving, I love it. I completely love what I do. But it's easy to get burnt out, and you got to think about that as a reason for failure. You're completely burnt out. You can't take family vacations. Everyone else is going on for 2 weeks at Disney World, and you're stuck because someone's sick.
I go on vacation. I make time to go on vacation.
But I think really the failure thing is, and that's, of course, that's a theme for tonight, is being comfortable with the idea and talking about failure with people, like David or anyone who's failed in business, because there's as many people who have failed as there are success. And what would they do different? Would you start the business again? I mean, one of the things that I saw when I was looking at either closing this business down and taking a tax write-off, I thought, I don't want to do that. I like the business too much. And I dug a little deeper, and I thought, this is something that I want to do. And I could see myself doing it for the next 10 years. And I'm 10 years later, and it's going gangbusters. But I'm always, every day that I go in and I think about, what can I do to improve what I'm doing? What can I do to make it a better experience? Every day. Is there something that I can do physically, or location-wise, or product-wise, or staff-wise? And every day, as we talk about with employees, it's a different issue. But I think about, the pluses and the minuses.
So Shannon, you were saying that you got the MBA from the School of Hard Knocks.
Experience.
And you,
Yeah, but I don't, yeah.
And you said you had a lot of good people giving you good advice.
Yes.
But they can't all have been speaking in the same voice. They must have been disparate opinions.
Yes. And in fact, I count that as one of my successes, that I surround myself with smart people. So one of the things that I had to come to grips with early on is that I don't have skills in every area that it takes to run a business. And so I had to figure out, okay, I really suck at details. Like, give me a contract, I mean, that will sit on my desk for 2 weeks until someone's just like...
Detailed business, isn't it, with all this stuff?
In a sense, I'm talking about like that's like organization. That is what, I don't know. The details is not my strength. But thankfully, you were talking about, if you would have had a business partner, that's a whole nother,
Yes.
yeah. So,
Dilemma.
yes, dilemma.
Challenge.
Yes. So I had a business partner for until June this year, and I just sold my business partner the Tulsa franchise, and she sold me, so 2 businesses, the Tulsa franchise and the franchise system that runs all the franchises. So I sold her my half of the Tulsa business, and she sold me her half of the franchise. So now I have 100% in one company, and she has 100% in one company. And so far, it's worked out well. But the great thing about my previous business partner is that she was in the details. She was very much into the details, so much so that it really got on my nerves. And she was the person, like you said, if you would have had someone going, I felt like I was the one going, come on. And she was like, no, we're not going, And it was always like that. So we actually formed what we call the executive team, and these are people in our business that were the tiebreakers, if you will, because we rarely agreed on anything, but we brought different skills to the business, and I really think that is what helped the business grow, because we were able to really, I don't know how y'all do business or whatever, but I don't want to make a decision on my own, because if it fails, then who gets to be blamed for that? So I want to get as much advice from people who I trust and really feel like they have a skill in a certain area before I make the decision. So I want to think about it and measure the risk and not talk it to death, but I don't typically I don't make quick decisions. I at least talk to 2 or 3 people who I feel can give me some good insight, and you always need to surround yourself with someone who is not your yes person. So if you're going to start a business, you need to have that person that's going to ask you the hard questions. An example, I am going to New York City next week to pitch my company to 50 different media outlets, and it's called Media Mania. And I'm excited because I get to go do that, and hopefully it'll be some good PR if we get anything out of it. So that's the thing. So I came to my executive team last week at the last minute and said, what do you think about this? I'm thinking about going. And so they're like, well, how much does it cost? Is it in the budget? They're asking the questions that I don't really want to ask, because I'm like, I think I want to go. And then they're asking, okay, what are your goals for going, and how will you measure if this is a success? So we really had to sit down and look at, okay, if I'm going to spend $5,000 to go to this event and get a hotel room and be gone from the office, what do I expect to get out of it? And it's great to have those people who can kind of, I say spank you when you do something bad, not literally spank you, but they're going, it's okay, Shannon, you'll do better next time. They're like, what the heck were you thinking? Why did you do that? And so I need that person in my life. And so that's why I feel like it's great to surround yourself with people. Have y'all heard of the book StrengthsFinder 2.0? It's a real short book. StrengthsFinder 2.0, write it down, you need to do it. And you You go and take an online inventory of your skills, and then it tells you really what your skills are and who you would work well with. And so I think it's great to know, oh, yeah, I'm an includer. That's why I go in a room, and if someone's sitting by themselves, I want to introduce myself and get them to meet someone else because I don't want them to be sitting alone. That's one of my strengths. But details was not one of them. And so one of the things that I did whenever Devin and I did our split in the businesses is I took someone from part-time to full-time who is in the details, because I did not want to lose that skill within our company, because that could mean danger or failure. So I'm talking a lot, sorry.
James, so you don't have an executive team you consult, do you?
What I do is I have an informal group of business leaders or business owners that I meet with on a monthly basis. And what we do is we informally talk about current issues. And it's very informal. We talk about HR issues sometimes, talk about business trends. But these are guys who have started their businesses, been doing it for a long time. And it's a forum. It's more times than not, it's a sounding board, but it's my executive team in many respects.
Is this through the chamber?
No, it's like, no. But it's something that is extremely invaluable to me. And the group has changed a little over the years, but it gives me insight to how they manage their business. Because what happens is when you're in your businesses all day long, as Dr. Morris said earlier, you're in your business too much. You need to look at your business as an outsider looks, and to go into your business every day and look at it like the first time you've ever seen it is hard to do. But other people will give you input. I think you need to do this, or have you thought about doing this, or this is something I heard about on a trip, or something I've seen or new business trends. The goal is to enrich and strengthen each other's businesses on a very informal basis. It's all a group of guys that I've known for a long time. But that's my business consulting group, and it's paid dividends, and it's something I always look forward to.
Let me take it a slightly different direction. We know that many of the decisions that spell success, all of you have had much success. We know that some of those decisions are based on gut, are based on, I know I should go to this thing. My partner's saying, not worth the money, or I know I should go to this thing. Can you talk a little bit about the role of instinct or gut, or just knowing inside that this is the thing to do?
Sure. Obviously, I did a lot of that. And I did not have a board of advisors, which is something I would definitely recommend. Find some older folks, some people that are in business, some family members, some people that will be brutally realistic with you, mentors. But yeah, I mean, there were obviously times where, well, just to do the thing in the beginning, probably same with these guys, just to start the thing was a gut, okay, this is something I think I ought to do. And there were people who said, you're crazy, friends, whatever, but not a real board. But yeah, I mean, and a lot of those were right. Some of them were wrong. But especially in the beginning, a lot of those are right. But that's the tough part about not having somebody. When you're all alone, like you are now.
But not really, because I have the executive team.
Right. So keep those people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's something you have to be really careful against. Really guard against, because you could be wrong. And like you said, if Shannon said, if you're the one that does it and you're the only one, you own it, 100%. So, and then like James said, it's nice to have another set of eyeballs to look at it from a totally different perspective. But yeah, I think every entrepreneur is a little crazy. Every entrepreneur is a little outside the box. Every entrepreneur obviously listens to their gut more than most. Probably a little less conservative than most normal humans, where they just wouldn't jump out there. They just have an 8 to 5.
You listen to your gut a lot?
Higher threshold of risk.
Right, yeah.
Do I listen to my gut a lot? I should probably listen to it more. Oh, thank you. When you asked that question, I was thinking we had a franchisee that we took on as a franchise. So in the franchising world, you have to kind of meet certain qualifications to buy into the business. So we get leads from 100 different places and they want to apply to own one of our businesses. Well, we don't give it to every person that fills out an application. So you have to take them through a set of criteria and make sure they meet the standards that you want, because they're going to be running your business, so they're going to be representing you. And there was this one gentleman that he kind of met the characteristics, and I was just like, I think he'll do okay. And then I was just like, I put his application to the side. I'm like, I'm not going to call him. I just had something inside me was like, it's not going to work. And about 2 months later, I get a phone call on my cell phone, and it's this gentleman, and he says, hey, I sent in my application, what do you think? And so I was like, how'd you get my cell phone number? And he said, I read on the website that on the Fort Worth website, your mom is a franchise owner, and her phone number was on her website. So I called her and wore her down, and she gave me your cell phone number. So he's talking to me and saying, I really want to be a franchise owner. And I said, well, listen, you don't meet the criteria here. You don't meet the criteria here. Tell me how you're going to overcome this. Write me a paper, basically, and tell me how you're going to overcome this. So he did this and just kind of wore me down. So I sold him a franchise. He knocked it out of the park, the first sale. But I just did not feel great about it. And then he came to me and said, Shannon, I want a second franchise. And I was like, I don't feel good about this. But he had met, the performance requirements. He had done this. So I was like, okay, here's your second franchise. Long story short, he's no longer in business because I should have listened to my gut, and that was a learning lesson for me. So anytime I get that check in my spirit, I'm like, okay, Lord, no. And even if I don't have a good reason, even if they meet all the qualifications, they have tons of money, they are good on camera, all of this, I'm just like, probably shouldn't do that. So yeah, I think it's very good to listen to your gut.
What do you got? Yes, sir.
Failures or missteps hold a negative connotation, but it's also a sign of progress and learning. How do you maintain a positive attitude throughout the company?
So not just personally, but organizationally. That was one thing I was good at. So for me, I'm a people person. So managing employees, getting them excited, communicating with them, that's something I did pretty regular. Some of the places I've worked at, like some of the things I'm doing now, I'm doing some consulting with some people. And it's funny coming into someone else's entrepreneur, startup, organization, company, and seeing it from the outside, because you really see, you immediately see things that you think, whoa. But like Dr. Morris said, you're going to succeed while you fail, you're going to fail while you succeed. So to me, if you're going to keep these people happy and motivated and excited, I think you got to communicate with them all the time. I think you got to be honest with them, good, bad, and ugly. You got to stop and celebrate successes. You got to make winning a big deal. You got to make, if you sell a contract, run around the office and yell and scream or ring a bell or whatever your deal is, have a luncheon or whatever. And if you have a failure, then like Shannon said, one of the best things Shannon said so far was that after every event, they sit down and openly discuss what worked, what didn't work, good, bad, and ugly, and they write it down and adjust. You'd be shocked how many Fortune 500 companies, I've worked at a couple, don't do that. It's crazy, but that's why people fail, because they don't adjust. So, but I think communication's a big deal.
Huge.
Adjusting's a big deal. I would say stable leadership, strong, consistent management, but flexible business plan. Those are kind of contradictory, but they're not. Really, if you think about it. Steady leadership, but flexibility as an organization, willing to adjust. And like James said, your customer will tell you what your product should be doing or what your company should be doing if you'll just listen and adjust. If you sell 5 things and 2 of them are great, 3 of them are terrible, yeah, Exactly. Add a couple more, try, you know, your customers will tell you what they want if you talk to them. So, and that's something that I talk about a lot in the book is on the marketing side, which is what I was good at. Know your customer. What is their need? How do you meet that need better than the other guy? Most businesses don't invent the wheel. Most businesses just do an existing thing better. So, you know, if you're the best guy in your town or area or market to meet this customer's real need, you're going to be successful. If you give them what they want, they'll be back.
Yes, sir.
Mr. George? Yes, sir. After the first and then a troubled second, what gave you the drive, what you learned, and what was your process to get into your third, I believe, real estate, to your third business? What was that transition like?
No employees. You know, after the first one, after the second one, the trouble of the second one, it took me a long time to open that third business. I mean, I thought, I went through and did all the things I should have done on the second business. I didn't make any assumptions. I thought, you know, what happens if commercial real estate goes down the tubes? What happens if, you know, our economy goes down? You know, one of the things I think no one really has anticipated is how the economy starting in 2008 has affected everything that we do. It's affected your employment opportunities coming out of school. Things like that you really can't anticipate completely. But one of the things I try to do is say, again, what's the worst thing that can happen? That if no one rents our spots for 6 months, can I make it? What happens in a year? Can I make it? You know, so if you plan on it accordingly, you have enough cash in the bank to weather those ups and downs. That gave me enough incentive to go ahead and do it. But I didn't jump into it, the third one, like I did the second one, by any stretch. It took some gut-wrenching things to think, okay, do I want to spend, you know, $500,000 on a building and not have any tenants? So that's the biggest difference.
Do you have investors?
Yeah.
No, this is you.
No. It's all just from out of cash flow. So.
There in the back. I think you raised your hand up.
Shannon, do you agree with the statement that failing to plan is planning to fail?
Yes. Huge. Huge. And we have some underperformers right now, and I try to drill that into them because it's, seriously, here's the plan. We're giving you the plan. If you follow the plan, you're going to succeed. But if you don't have a plan, you don't have goals, you have nothing to work towards. So yes, I wholeheartedly agree with that. Sorry to be so adamant about that, but yes.
Right here.
For David Miller, when you said that you were taking on more power when expanding than you could handle, would it have been easier for you to think about maybe dividing your power into other employees that you might have trusted enough? And do you believe that would have provided a success for you later on, or are you happy with the outcome that has happened?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm happy with the outcome. I sleep better at night, and I have an 8 to 5. I make more money and a lot less stress. So, is it as cool? No. But, yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong. I made it last, but probably too much fun. But, yeah, I mean, ideally, sure. Yeah, if I was going to do it over, and I don't think I would have done 5 locations, but yeah, and I said, okay, we're going to go from 1 to 5 locations, yeah, we might have wanted to have 5 managers, because it's really hard for one person to be 5 managers, which is what I try to do. And at the same time, I want to spend all my time doing sales and marketing. So, I mean, it just didn't do it. But yeah, I mean, theoretically, had I been able to find 5 good managers and afford them, yeah, it probably could have worked. But my real answer to that question would be, I wouldn't have had 5 locations. I just would have stuck with the core business, done what I was. That's another thing that there's a book out there, diverting from the core, leaving the core, getting outside the core, something like that. 98% of all businesses for the last 100 years that got outside their core business failed. So that should tell you something about focusing on what you really do.
And we've tried that.
And not 7 other things. And it's like he said, you're really good at something, you're like, wow, I'm a business genius. This means I can do this and this and this. It's not true. Successful people are not smarter. In America, we tend to make it that way, right? Jack Welch is a genius. He's not a genius. He's a good business guy, right? Steve Jobs is a genius. But just because somebody's rich does not make them any smarter than the guy next to you. I promise.
Well, we're not let that go completely. Because cigars, coffee, and real estate are hardly the same business. So
He's a good business guy.
what's your reflection on that?
There are all three things that I love to do. I mean, I love real estate because you can physically touch it. You can go put your hands on it. At the end of the day, it's like farming. It's like you can touch it. You can see what's in there. You can go through and see if all the lights are on and all the tenants are in it. Coffee is something that is absolutely an amazing thing to me. Every day I'm intrigued by it. And the cigar thing is very much the same thing. I have very few vices. I mean, I don't drink. I came from a family who didn't drink at all or smoke, but I love cigars. Where'd that come from? I don't know. But it's one of my very few vices. It's one of the very few things that I take the time to do to relax. And so it's always intrigued me. I used to have a job where I traveled a lot around the world. So when I would travel, I'd go visit cigar shops in Europe and Asia and visit cigar plantations in South America. And it's still fascinating to me. I am like a kid at Christmas time, every time a new cigar comes out. I love it. I just absolutely love it. Or there's a new coffee from Nicaragua that's coming out. It's 2 weeks from now, and I'm already thinking about what it's going to taste like. How weird is that? I mean, it's just crazy weird. But that's how my mind works. And that's the reason that I never feel like I'm truly working. And so all three are different, but all three things just completely captivate me. If I'm not sleeping, I'm thinking about it. So.
Passion is huge. Keeps you going, passion.
Well, this is kind of applies to all of you, but what would you say is the most challenging part of opening your business?
Understanding what you want to be. Thinking that what you think the market is not really what the market is. And is your ego, is your adaptability flexible enough that you will change what you're doing no matter what? And I've seen a lot of businesses not make it because they're not going to adapt. You may have a great idea, or I have 2 or 3 great ideas, but in reality, maybe 30% of what your great ideas are truly will keep your business open. So you got to change. And are you willing to make that change? Then again, you talk about employees, that's the other issue.
Yeah, you have to be willing to admit when you're wrong, which is tough for some people.
That's not fun. I would say the biggest challenge for me personally was not having a salary, not getting money. Paying money to run your business and paying your employees and paying everyone else but yourself. And I don't know if every business owner does this, but we bootstrapped our business. So we didn't go out and get investors. I was too much of a control freak and still am. So I didn't want to give away part of my company to anyone else because then they would tell me what to do. But what that meant was no money in my pocket for a while. With the first business, I think we made money from the beginning, like $150. I think we made the first time. But then literally I would say, we're working for pennies. We are working all these hours, we're making pennies. And then we took the money from the Tulsa business to start the franchise system. So we're still working for pennies over here. Now we have double the work. And the franchise business was profitable, I think, in the 3rd year, but we weren't able to start really paying ourselves until well into the 4th year. And so, you're working all these hours, and thankfully I had a husband that, made a good living and makes a good living. So I was able to do that, but that's something you have to plan for. I think that's a challenge for everyone, is making sure that you have adequate capital.
Yes.
Shannon, with the extreme growth that your company experienced, going from your living room to 116 franchises, did you make any big mistakes regarding just managing that growth?
Managing the growth. Yes. Ooh, yes. Initially, when we started the franchise system, our technology provider was a guy. You know, would you do my website? Sure. Okay, now we need a volunteer scheduler. Will you do this? Sure. Oh, now we need this. Would you do this? So over a 7-year period, he has built this huge infrastructure for us. But guess what? It's not really scalable. So the franchisees, and this is going on currently, this is like, as a business owner, I think you have to be a problem solver. You have to be. I think that's key. But that was one of the things, probably the biggest. I tell the franchisees that I wake up thinking about it and I go to sleep thinking about it, is all the technology issues that we are having right now. And so we're in the middle. I just let the franchisees know yesterday that we are going to have a whole new overhaul of our technology. They don't know I've been working on it since last summer, so well over a year. But I just let them know today because there's been so many issues with the technology, the site going down or the errors on the site or whatever, that they're fed up. And thankfully, we're well into the project. So I can't even remember your question now, but I don't know. Because
managing growth.
Okay, yeah. So scaling your business for growth. So I would say if you're starting a business, plan for growth, but you have to really think about, he grew, but didn't plan for maybe the money that it was going to take to run that other location. Had you have hired a manager and put that in your plan, then it might have.
I had a plan.
Okay.
We're in the back.
Yes, this is for Shannon. If, for say, disaster would strike tomorrow, what kind of contingency plans do you have in place for your franchises and your company as itself?
Are you saying like if disaster struck me tomorrow? Like because like all of our franchises, we've had like Hurricane Katrina, or a venue changes their mind at the last minute and they can't have their event there. So they're supposed to have backup plans, but sometimes there's no backup plan. So you just kind of have to roll with the punches and hope you survive. But as far as backup, I was almost in a big wreck last night, which is on my Facebook. I have like 44 comments about it, but almost being in a wreck, it totally makes you think about what would happen if I wasn't here. And I've been going over this with my staff. If you were hit by a bus tomorrow, I wouldn't know what you're doing. You have to write it down. We have to have these policies. We have to have these procedures. So we're actually going to have this sounds really fun. I know it sounds really fun, but we're going to have a policies and procedures retreat in January where we're going to go get away from the office, get away from the kids, get away from everyone, and we're going to actually work on writing down how to run each person, write down what they do every day. Because we have simplified version, but it's not if one of them did get hit by a bus tomorrow, I don't know. But as far as me, so when I took over the franchise system in June, what I've been doing, what my goal has been, is to give away every job responsibility I have. So, except for leading the company. And eventually, I'll give that away. Eventually, I'll hire someone to be operations and to be research and development and to be, do the things that I do, sales. So it's been really freeing over the last 3 months to be able to give parts of the stuff that I was doing when I had a business partner to other staff members, and we've hired some people to do some of those things because I really feel so much more peace, if you will, that the business will survive without me. And so that's my goal. I don't know that it's every business owner's goal, but it should be something you think about is when you exit the company, it should be able to survive without you.
Well, I think that makes your business more valuable as well. So someone could come in and buy your business. You're not the business. You've got the business in place, but you're not the business anymore.
And it doesn't happen like that in the beginning because you typically, when you start your own business, you are the HR person. You are the accounting department. You are the sales department. You're doing everything. But then as you can with profitability, hire people to do those things, and you should try to give them away. That was good advice that I got from someone, and hoping it works.
So, Shannon, I'm probably shouldn't admit this, but I'm a profound believer that on many levels, it doesn't really matter what you major in when you're in college.
Okay.
Good. Pat, you were French?
Yes, that's correct.
French major. You said you were a
Elementary education.
Psychology.
Psychology and business.
Ah, there we go.
So, why is your degree, or is your degree, unassociated with your success?
Well, like I said, I'm an accidental entrepreneur. It just happened into this business. I didn't have these grand plans to grow like this in the beginning. And now I think about growth all the time. You know, where are we going to be 5 years from now? Where are we going to be 10 years from now? Am I going to sell the company? So I don't know that. I think there are certain things that I learned just going to school and getting a degree, but I don't know. I just don't think that you have to have the degree in every instance. I definitely think that it totally gets you started. For those of you who are, I guess everyone in here is a business major. I think you're going to start, marketing, whatever. You're going to start out with all of these great ideas that I was learning music for 5-year-olds, That's not something I'm using right now. But just, but I am also like a continual learner. So when I hired a girl to do my website the very first time, this was back in like 1999 maybe, I hired someone to do the website, and she was a girl in our youth group, and she did it, and then I needed changes, and she was never around, and I'm like, holy cow. So I went back to school, and I was well over, I don't know how old I was, but anyway, the instructor said when I was in this class, I can tell who's over 30, and I was like, just because I don't know how to do everything doesn't mean I can't learn how to do it. And I did my own website. I went to that class to be able to have control over that and be able to update it. Then I took a marketing class to see if I could use any of that stuff. So I think being a continual learner, I try to get my staff, when I did performance reviews last month, I was like, what do you want to do? Is this what you want to do? Is there any skill that you don't have right now that would help you in your job? And each of them had something that they wished they had this certain skill. So I'm like, okay, here's your budget. Go find a class. If it's a webinar, if it's a TCC class, if it's something, I want you to learn how to do this skill better, because it will just better themselves. So I think being a continual learner is important.
Well, that's why so much of these things that come out of these conversations resonate with me. We have art majors, engineering majors, ag majors, so it's not just business students. You had a question, Rick?
Oh, yes. This is just for each of you. What would you say the biggest single failure you've had in your businesses is, and what have you taken away from it?
Well, mine would obviously be the total collapse of my business and the loss of everything. Except the clothes I have on tonight, which were gifts from my parents. No, it sounds as bad as it sounds, okay.
In a trailer down by the river.
You're right, yeah. I live in a trailer down by the river in Dallas, Texas. The Trinity River in Dallas, Texas. This is named Trinity. Anyway, so yeah, that would be it. What did I take away from it? A lot, honestly. I work for some guys now that own their own business, and I'm not the owner, which is fantastic. And I thank the Lord every day for that. And I've been doing that for a couple of years now. And but what I took away from it was I try to be different than I was before. I try to learn from, like I talked about, sales and marketing is a natural thing for me. The other stuff, being a little more conservative, a little more realistic, a little more straightforward. I ask a lot more tough questions, like Shannon was talking about, I'm the guy now sitting in the meeting, believe it or not, I'm the guy now sitting in the meeting saying, okay, what if that doesn't work? How much does that cost? How long is it gonna take?
You've done that.
Yeah.
You know better, so you do better.
Right, I'm not a different person, I'm not, a negative person, I'm still a positive guy, but I just immediately start thinking about, well, what if this doesn't work? Right, and what is it gonna do to us, and what else is it gonna screw up? I actually say, and those thoughts never entered my mind before. It was always just go, go, go. So what I think I'm a lot better business person now. I'm more conservative, a lot more, I'm a lot harder to stress out, that's for sure. Nothing that happens stresses me out at all. It's like, really? Oh, fire? There's the extinguisher. I'll see you at lunch.
Yeah.
It's just, because compared to owning the business,
That's nothing.
yeah, okay, yeah. It's just not a big deal, Customer said what? I'll call them. It's just, I don't freak out anymore, so.
I don't think I can follow that one up very much. The biggest thing I can take away from it is just knowing all the obstacles. And the biggest thing you can do, and I think Shannon said at the beginning, is having enough time and money. And I'll underline the money part. If you have both of those, you can fix a lot of problems. And it takes a lot of stress off. But if you have no time and you're financially strapped and you delete your 401k account to open up your business and you can't make payroll and your credit cards are maxed out, that's when it gets a little stressful. So try not to put yourself in that situation. Your life is a lot easier.
Yes.
Debbie? You guys both, or all three, been on the failure or success roller coaster, and since business is mostly about relationships, what have you done to guard your reputational, or your reputation after you fail? Because you can't necessarily control how people perceive failure, and whereas you may see it as a positive, you can't control if other people don't want to conduct future business with you. So how do you proceed?
I think you have to be real yourself, and pretending that you didn't fail is not really an option, because especially if it's a business and it's out there. I do a lot of apologizing. I do a lot of apologizing. Even when I don't think that I really had anything to do with the failure, I do a lot of apologizing. Because really, if you have to own your part in the failure, just as you own your part in the success. So I think as far as protecting your reputation, you can't control what people think of you. And I'm one of those people pleasers. I want everyone to like me. And if someone doesn't like me, it just gets all over me. I'm like, what do you not like? I'm very likable. And unless I don't like them, and then it's okay. But protecting your reputation
For future business opportunities.
For future business opportunities.
Partnerships and
My answer to that would be, and obviously I've been further down the roller coaster than these two, got thrown off of it, but I can still go to the grocery store in Tulsa, which is amazing, and not get beaten up, so it's good. But brutal honesty, try to do the right thing as much as possible, try to be honest about it, try to face the music, which is basically what Shannon was saying. And that
don't try to blame others too.
Right. When my place closed, it took about 3 weeks to get it completely unwrapped. I was there every day, 8 to 5, facing everybody. Everyone else had gone and found another job, but I was there and faced everybody. And here's the thing, honestly, what I was thinking about when Shannon was talking, there's so little real honesty in our society today. Look at our politics. Enough said, right? Talk, no action, okay? So it's all BS. If you're really honest about people and they can tell, they really appreciate it because it's really rare now. It was always special, now it's crazy rare. It is, right? Just brutal honesty. I screwed up, I'm so sorry, what can I do to help out, make it better? People, you don't hear that anymore. And if you mean it, and they feel like you mean it, it's really special. So
well, I think
that's how I handle this.
Sharing what you learn when you do fail, and I'm just thinking of if you're in you totally screwed up and now you're trying to get a job, you now have a mistake that has happened that won't happen again because you learned from that mistake. And
The word bankruptcy is on my resume. I wrote a book about it. I mean, that's how I embraced the horror, right? That's how I made it better. You know, and so far I haven't had anybody that thought that was a bad thing. Actually, most of the hiring people are like, really, tell me about it. I mean, they're interested. So I just embraced it, but I don't know if everybody can do that. But yeah, I mean, that's what Shannon was basically saying, is just the brutal honesty of it. It's so rare now. I mean, you don't try to spin it, you don't try to sell it, just give it to them. Because nobody does that anymore, right? Nobody does that.
Well, the way I would look at it, let's say I were a banker and you came to me with a business idea and you needed some money to fund your business venture. If you'd come to me and said, I've got this great idea, I've never done this before, I think it's going to be a success. You know, your credibility would be very low. If you come to me and said, I've failed at this before, here's what I've learned, here's how I've adapted, I'm a seasoned, I'm a lot more savvy, I think this will be a lot of success. You have a lot more credibility. And I think when you own your failure, you establish the credibility versus someone who's just bright-eyed, bushy-tailed going into it, and they have not seen the dark side of having your own business. So,
Good.
Yeah, mine went very closely with hers. I wasn't raising my hand anymore because I believe you just answered it. It was when hiring contractors. It's close, but yeah. When hiring, historically in the hiring process, whether it be contractors, employees, and consultants, do you like to hear about their hard knocks they have been through, and does that encourage you to hire them?
well, I mean, I like to hear the story. I mean, if they're consistently making the same mistakes, that's a huge red flag. But if they come in and said, here's where I've been, here's what I've learned from it, here's what I've done that's changed, that's different, sure. I think that's someone who can appreciate you running your own business. I mean, I always try to tell people, you know, if you're an employee or starting a business, think about what the business is trying to achieve. Of course, you have profits, you want to achieve high customer satisfaction. So the more as an employee or a potential employee you can mirror what you want to do with what the business is asking of you to do, the closer in alignment you can make those two things, the more successful you will be, the more successful the business will be because of you.
Yes, sir. Victor?
Starting your businesses, obviously there is a higher percentage that, you know, the failure is, I mean, it's going to happen. And then when that happens, there's this word that you see in front of you, success. And then the people with you tell you don't give up. And you keep going through that failure. When do you know when to stop? And say, no, I can't carry on any further.
I will say I'm pointing to him because if I had been $250,000 in debt and kept going, that's just over my threshold of risk. So I want to know, I want the answer to that question too.
Well, okay, if I'm looking back from the vantage point that I have now, you know, just because people are telling you to continue, you've got a great idea, what I would say to you is talk to people who can actually help you versus being a motivational tool. As an entrepreneur, you probably don't need more motivation, but you do need good business advice. So if you believe in your idea, start doing, Shannon does a lot better job than I do as far as including other people into the business decision. You know, that was one of my mistakes, is I thought I knew it all. I didn't, not by any stretch. So the more proactively you can get different inputs into why your business is not going in the direction that you want, the more successful you'll be. But eventually, if you don't change, you will go out of business. You know, if you're heading down the wrong track where you're having a tough time meeting payroll, you can't pay your vendors, that's not where you want to be. So the first time that happens, or the first time you get even a small red flag, is stop and figure out what's going on. Is why are customers not buying our products? Why are my invoices going up? Why are they not opening up accounts?
You have to be a problem solver.
You have to be a problem solver, day in and day out. You know, every time Shannon walks into the office, she's solving problems. And she never, every day if there's problems, she probably pops up that she's never thought about. Same here. And so, and there's sometimes in disciplines that she doesn't necessarily like to be involved in. And I think one of the things that she said at the beginning too is find out what you'd like to do, and the things that you don't like to do, delegate. find someone else who does like to do those things, because there's always that opposite person to you who has strengths that you don't have. You know, I'm not a detailed person either. I've had to be, but I don't like to be. So as much as I can delegate, I have.
All right.
Hypothetical question here. We'll say, envision yourself here in 5 years or so. You've all experienced some failures. But let's say an ultimate failure or bankruptcy, everything collapses, you're done. Would you say that what you've learned throughout the process would enable you to want to start something else again, or would you opt out to a 9 to 5?
Let's make, if I understand your question, if everything collapsed tomorrow, what would I do? I've never thought about that. You know, at this point, I have the luxury, I don't think, unless something happens dramatically, of something not, either I can sell the businesses or, you know, manage from afar possibly. But if it did, I would be opposed to starting again. The unfortunate thing for me is I don't know what else I have the passion for than what I'm involved in right now. Nothing else motivates me that much, or I probably would be involved in that. So I can't imagine that.
For me, it was go and focus on what I was really good at, which was sales and marketing. So that was my, I won't say immediate thought, but you know, after a couple of weeks.
He's very good at that.
Yeah, I mean that's just what I'm good at for whatever reason. Like he said, I don't know where it comes from, but I'm just good at it, I'm natural. So that was my first thought when I started thinking about, you know, I'm going to go get a job. I'm not ever going to be the boss again. I'm not ever going to have employees again. Some of that was an overreaction, but I just wanted to go get a job and be somebody's sales and marketing guy. So, and that's what I did, and I'm very happy, and they're very happy. And occasionally we'll go out and we'll have beers, and they'll ask me other questions about other parts of the business, one-on-one. Well, when you were an owner, what did you do with it? You know, so I'm not giving some free advice, you know, about stuff, but I always finish the thing by saying, but I'm just the sales and marketing guy.
But there still could be another venture in your life. Right.
Yeah, but it won't be fixing cars. I mean, I get that question. I have guys call me all the time. Hey, come run my body shop. No, thank you. Hey, come, you know, come be a partner and you can own it. We'll double it and we'll all get rich. I've seen that movie. Yeah. So, but no, it would be sales and marketing, consulting, teaching, speaking, this kind of stuff. Honestly.
Kristen.
Kind of going back to, I guess, there's like a difference between an entrepreneur and a manager. And so with David, for your business, it didn't work out for you in terms of, you know, you try to do your own venture. Do you think that you have more managerial competencies, and like how, do you think that that entrepreneurial journey set you up for a great like corporate success, maybe to work that 9 to 5? Like going through the entrepreneurial process made you a stronger employee to a company?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. In fact, you know, I mentioned I'm working for some guys. They own a small business, and I'm just working there. They say that all the time, that I'm a great employee because I've been the boss. So yeah, I think one of you two mentioned that the employees never realize what it's like to be the boss. They assume you've got it made, you make more money, you work less hours, and actually the opposite is true. So that's the irony of the deal, right? Irony, the reverse, when the facts are reverse from what you think. So the boss works more, makes less, bless you. So yeah, for me, you know, I can see it on their faces. When something goes wrong, I can just feel the disturbance in the force, and I'm like, go to my office. Have fun dealing with that crazy employee, or have fun with that labor board call, or you know. So, but yeah, no, I'm a much better employee. I'm a much better manager. I'm a much better. I'm just a lot more mellow, conservative. You know, I ask the hard questions that I never wanted to ask. You know, I was the idea guy before. Hey, let's do this. Great, let's do that. And it never stopped. But yeah, I definitely got something out of it for sure. Humble.
Yes, sir. For all three guys, do you think that the location, like if you guys hadn't done what you did in Tulsa, would your stories be that much different? Or how specifically influential was your location?
No, I would have screwed it up anywhere.
I've thought about that a lot because someone told me at one point that Tulsa is used as a test market for companies sometimes.
Average city in America.
Okay. And so I know since we franchised that what our demographic is and what we're looking for. And so I can measure that and I can try to replicate that in other cities now. But had I started this business in California, it probably wouldn't have worked. Because the costs are so much more expensive there. The venues are so much more expensive there. I mean, we can get around it now because of the model we have in place. I don't think I would have kept going because I think there would have been too many roadblocks that had come up.
I think in Oklahoma we have a great business climate. I think it's easy to start businesses. I think it's we have people who are very accepting when you make mistakes. What I try to do every year is take little pilgrimages to places that I think do exceptional jobs. Usually within our industry, but even places that are not in our industry. And I try to see what their best practices are. What makes this shop stand out? You know, when I hear about them over and over again, I took a visit to Chicago a few months ago of this place that was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it was a $2 million business, or $2 million building, and it was exceptional. I mean, the things that I took away in an afternoon from that shop is worth 2 years of reading books, just to see what they're building. And I thought, you know, what we were doing was good. We're not even in the ballpark. And so, by being in Tulsa, it gives me a greater latitude to experiment with things, and it's not as hard to be the best at what you do in Tulsa. It would be if you're in Chicago or New York or Dallas. You know, Dallas is a very competitive market in all of our industries. And it would be, you have to be the best. You can't have any downtime. You've got to have the best staff, the best location, the best products, the best everything. And in Tulsa, you get away with a little bit more.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
This is for James. Did industry success and failure rates have any part in what type of venture you ventured into?
No, didn't look at that at all. When I got out of college, a mentor of mine gave me a piece of advice, and it didn't even register with me at the time, but I locked it away. He said, if you can find something you love to do, then do it. And that's carried throughout everything I do nowadays. Because as I mentioned once this evening, I never feel like I'm at work. I never had that dread. It's like, I don't want to go to work today. It's Friday, I want to take a day off. I look forward to it. There's a new challenge. And what I do is extremely motivating to me. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm blessed. So I enjoy it.
Lindsay?
This is for you as well, James. Now you have three different businesses. So within each of these businesses, you have to have different types of employees with different skill sets. Now you said that you have a group of individuals that you talk to, but how do you manage all three businesses, knowing that you have to handle certain businesses or certain employees differently?
You know, that's a great question. Because one of my businesses requires a lot more. The clientele is completely different. More demanding, less tolerant. They don't like change as much. And so, you know, I've had employees in that business for 10, 12 years consistently. And the clientele does not like to have change. The other business is a little more transient, a little more younger, a little more of a hipper vibe to it. And so it's hard for me to change gears sometimes. And I have to consciously think about one type of business I have to be less demanding on. The other one I can be more demanding because that's what's expected. And so, it's tough. It's a real tough thing because when I said I have employees who've been there over a decade at one shop, and the average lifespan of the other one is 2 or 3 years. So, and they both require a lot of training, maintenance, always adapting. You know, one, since I'm always pushing change, I have to have employees who accept change more readily. The other one is less changeable. And so I'm always pushing them. And a lot of times I'm pushing them out of their comfort zone. But that's how our business has stayed in business as long as it has. You know, I mean, I consider myself somewhat a coach, but I'm just really trying to push them a lot. And to always, everything that they do it to perfection. You know, that's hard. That's hard to do that day in, day out. It's hard for me, and I have a vested interest in it. So I have to have lower expectations sometimes with that good balance.
And this is lessons learned along the way.
Sure. A lot of lost employees. So,
right?
James, beside your desire to succeed, beside your love for your business, what do you do to keep the same level of energy, the same level of motivation to sleep 6 hours a day and to work 18 hours for business?
What I try to do is I try to take care of myself. First and foremost, I try to take care of myself. I try to eat well. I try to do things that I enjoy outside of business. You know, family, you know, all those things are important. If you don't have that balance in your life, if all you do is work 18 hours a day, you're not a very happy person, no matter how motivated you are on what you do. So you have to devote time to yourself. You know, if that means getting up in the morning and walking with the dogs, or you know, having a cup of coffee on the porch. If you enjoy doing that, if you enjoy reading the paper, I mean, find those things and make it. Well, here's a little aspect of my personality. I have 1 cup of coffee a day, but by limiting myself to 1 cup of coffee, I start craving it the night before. So I give myself those little incentives. I mean, it's the craziest thing ever. But I look forward to it. You know, I don't overindulge in things like that.
I do that.
I totally overindulge. I'm like, where's my
Chocolate
coffee?
cake,
I got up at 5:15.
Coffee, ice cream, what? Coffee?
Yeah.
But you know, you bring up a really good point. How do you keep your energy level after doing it for 15 years? And you know, intrinsically I'm motivated by what I do, but I've also seen times where I push it too hard and it becomes a challenge. But by taking those trips, as I mentioned, to other businesses that I really admire, it's a motivating thing to me. It's like, sure, you talk to other business owners, and that's part of our business group that we do, is talking to them and thinking that I'm not the only one who's going through these challenges right now. There's a lot of other folks who are doing the same, have the same type of issues. There's strength in numbers sometimes too. And so that helps to keep you motivated. So.
One final question. Who's got it? Go ahead.
Okay, so you start a business and you fail. I guess one of the biggest fears is how do you deal with the debt that comes with failure? Are there any recommendations? How do you deal with that debt?
Debt, is it financial debt? Or just
Personal,
emotional, the whole thing?
financial. Because that is one of the biggest fears. When, say, if I want to start a business tomorrow, how do I overcome that? Is there something to alleviate, to minimize?
Right. Well, Shannon mentioned this a while back, but you know, I would definitely recommend start small. If you can, just, you know, don't get a big loan. Don't, you know, put everything on the line if you can avoid that. Whether that's you bootstrap it with your own money, or partners, or investors, or whatever. But you definitely want to be really careful about what you put on the line. You know, there's a lot of times you go into a bank and talk to them about a loan, and they're like, sure, just, you know, put your house on the note. Don't do that.
Oh, I did that.
Yeah, well.
I still do that.
No, yeah, you gotta get that rid of that. You're big enough now, you can get rid of that. You can go in there and say, take it off, and they'll do it.
Okay.
Do that
You
tomorrow.
do that.
You should do that, I mean, because you just seriously, you're big enough, you can snap your fingers and they'll take it off.
Okay, I'm
You
gonna
know
do
that.
it.
You have the cash flow. Okay, so if you do have to do that, short term, get rid of it as fast as possible, right? That's insane. You know, don't personally guarantee stuff if you can avoid it, but.
But in this day and age, it's hard to
You're
get.
big enough.
Okay, but I'm just saying, they
If they're
expect so much more now to get funding from lending institutions. They expect so much more.
Dealing with a bank now is like impossible.
Right.
So,
for small business.
Right, and that's why the economy's still dragging. But yeah, I just say just start small, put as little on as possible. If you got a spouse that's supportive, like Shannon said, that's perfect. You know, that really helps a lot. There's your partner right there, right? They're working full time, they're paying the bills, you start a business. You know, it's like one of you going to medical school. Maybe somebody's got to pay the bills, but I don't know. That's what I would recommend. Just be very, very careful, very, very cautious, very, very paranoid. Just like James said, I mean, just have a plan for the worst, which most people don't. Just think, okay, if this thing blows up, then what? No one ever wants to say, then what? Ask yourself that, you know. So the emotional side of it, if you don't lose your house and everything, then that's a lot better. You're just mad at yourself and you go do another business, so that changes things when you're not homeless.
I think by you asking that question, you're a lot further along than most people are who are thinking about starting their own business.
Absolutely.
Just by asking that question, think about, as I mentioned earlier, what if? What are the downsides? And plan on those.
So most people don't do that. They just charge ahead.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. The other side of that question, there's a guy who's one of the top scholars in the field, and he's actually studied this and gone out and spent a lot of time with people who failed. And he describes it very similar to the grief experience. When you lose a loved one and the stages of grief that you go through, and he's able to model that and how entrepreneurs come to terms with it and get through it and get past it. So what do we learn?
You don't have to speak for everybody. What you learned? Yes. Okay. Well, I think that all three of our speakers gave us invaluable knowledge and experience this evening, so we're very lucky for that. But from Shannon specifically, I took that you have to be aware enough to recognize when things could be better and take steps to get it right. Also, you need to make sure that you have mentors who are not your yes people, but people who will be brutally honest with you and ask the hard questions. You need to plan for growth from the beginning, make sure your business is scalable. And lastly, you have to own your own part in every failure, just as you own your own part in every success.
Feel free to tweet those and put me in that @Shannon Wilburn and just give me.
I love the promotion.
A couple things from Mr. George was visualize your business not succeeding and plan for that. Do not let your ego get in the way. Every business is its own. Just because one succeeded doesn't mean another will. Ask where do you want to be down the road, and this might in turn help plan for success. Love what you do. If not, might get burned out. Also planning for might end in failure. And think about what you can do better every single day and get an outside look at your business.
Right, and then for Mr. Miller, he said that focus is a very important part of running a business, and you need to want to be there and enjoy doing what you do. He also said that communication with employees is key, and it is important to celebrate successes and continually be willing to adjust. And lastly, he said that passion is huge, and it keeps you going, and you must be willing to admit when you're wrong. And that's it. Yay.
Great. Let's hear it for these entrepreneurs. We'll, as is our custom, retire to Hideaway Pizza. Hope somebody can join us. Hope to see you guys tonight.